Right, I'm going to show you how to draw the square cheese. So what I have is a regular sheet of paper. This is just a piece of paper I got from the printer. And I taped it down, and then I put my vanishing points up really high, up like here, okay? So I just kind of have a little sketch on what my plan is. My plan is to make a basic box. I want more of the right side showing and less of the left side. So I'm going to put this line here a little more over to the left. And then I'm going to proceed to draw my box. Now, when you first draw, you're going to draw very lightly because we're going to be cutting things out of the box, okay? So you're going to need a ruler and a T-square. So let me just get started on here. So I'm going to zoom this back out a little bit so you can see my whole sheet. And I'm going to draw darker than you normally would so that you can see my demonstration. But normally, you would draw much lighter than the way I'm going to draw. So I'm going to put my center line of my box about right there, okay? And then what I'm going to do is draw one side to that point. So I'm going to go to this point here and draw the one side going up to the point and the other side going to that point like here, okay? And then I'm going to draw this side going to the other point. So I'm going to draw my basic box first, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the shapes out of my box. So I'm going to use my T-square now. I'm going to show where the side of the box. Here's the one side of the box. And the other side of the box, I'm going to show much more of the right side. Okay, now, the top of my box. Now, I don't need some of these marks here. So what I'm going to do, the top of my box now, going back to this point. There you go. And the top going back to the other point. So I've got my basic box. Like so. Obviously, you'll take an eraser and you'll erase some of these extra lines later, but for right now, this will be just fine. Let me just grab an eraser quick. Okay, so, later I can come back and I can get rid of that line and so on. You get the idea, okay? So I just am going to start like that, and I'm going to start taking the holes out of my box. Now, the holes are going to be square. So I am going to take a hole out of at least the edge. So let's say that I took a chunk out of the bottom right side of the box. I'm going to take my ruler and go like that, go like that. Now, since this is on the right side, this goes to the right point. So I'm going to take my T-square and draw at the top of that box going to the right point. Okay, so there's my little door, but I no longer need this line. And now this bottom wall here would be going back towards the other point. So now it looks like there's a tunnel or a doorway going into that, okay? Now I'm going to take a chunk out of this top edge. So once again, I'm going to take my chunk right here out of the top edge, and the side of that chunk is going to go back. It's on the right side, goes to the right point. And now the top of this is going to go back to the other point. So the top of my box here is, I'm going to erase this line right here. I don't need this line anymore, because I took a chunk out of that edge. That line no longer exists. So now I'm going to go back this way towards this one. And I'm going to make kind of a long slice here like this. And then this one's going to be like that. It's going to go back. And the top of this goes back to the other point because that's parallel with this edge. So there's the top of the opening right there. Okay. And I got rid of that line. I'm going to clean that up. Now, where else would there be lines on here? Well, there'd be a line right here. If I take my T-square, I'm going to draw a line straight down right here. That's that inside wall there. And I'm going to draw a line right here going back to this point. Okay? So now it looks as though there's a little slice out of my box. I can still see a little bit of a ghost line right here. I'm definitely going to want to get rid of that. Okay? So I don't want that line there. So now it looks like I've got a slice out of the side of my box. And you can come back in here and you can darken these and make them a little bit more apparent so there's no confusion as to where there's a line and where there's not a line. So basically, I'm going to cut a bunch of holes and pieces out of my box, okay? Now, you can make areas that are floating or unattached. So for example, I'm going to take this corner out of here, and I'm going to go back to this point here. So I drew that. Now I could take the whole chunk out, but I'm going to actually leave a piece here. Here's another piece. And I'm going to go back to this corner here. Okay. Now what I have I'm going to get rid of this line and that line. Okay, and I'm going to make this box here going back to this point. So it looks as though there's like a separate little cube that's not connected to the main box. Got that? So it looks as though there's this little cube sitting down there that's really not connected to anything. And of course, once I said, I'm going to erase some of these stuff. So that's really your square, how to basically do your square cheese, how to take holes. I want holes out of every edge of this box. So there's going to be holes in the middle, but there also needs to be holes out of every edge, which means this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge. This already has one out of here and out of here and out of here. So I've got some of that covered. And your holes don't necessarily have to be just square. You could make L-shaped holes or holes that are a little bit more complex, but usually square. We're going to kind of stick with that square, more of a geometric theme. So there's a line there. And then I'm going to go back to this line. And then I'm going to go back down here. And then I'm going to go back to that line. And then I'm going to go here. So now my hole isn't a square hole. It's kind of an L-shaped hole or an upside down L. And once again, I'm going to get rid of this line right here because that edge will no longer be there. And I draw these back to these points. So here's the inside edge there. There's an inside edge right here. And there's an inside edge right there. Okay. Now it looks as though I've taken a rectangular hole out of the side. And I can see these little things. So you can, once again, that's your basics, how to do your drawing, which I call square cheese. Once again, you can do shapes that are beyond squares. You could have a gabled roof on this. You could have a rounded top on it. You could be a pyramid. You can do a lot of different things. You can even cut letters out of the sides. So let's say I wanted to make, like, let's say, but this was a big letter A. I wanted to put a hole right there. So maybe I could put my hole right up here. And I'll go back to there. So there's a hole I put in the side, kind of like a window. Only I want to make this line go back, so I go back to this other point. And so on. So you got the idea. So you're going to do this drawing in pencil. You're going to darken your permanent lines. So you're going to go back here with a ruler. I'm doing it freehand, but you're going to take a ruler and make these lines really permanent and dark when you're all done. And then you're going to photograph this and you're going to bring it into Photoshop. And then in Photoshop, you're going to clean it up. Matter of fact, we might use Illustrator where we go in and we make these super smooth, sharp lines. And then we're going to add our colors to this. We're going to choose a light source. So if, let's say, my light was coming from the top and from this side, the top would be the lightest side. This would be a light medium, and then this would be a very dark side. Okay? And then you have to think of what the shadow's going to do. So like in here, this is like a cave. So this is going to be very dark because it's blocked from all the light, and it's going to get darker as it heads back into that cave. Got that? So that's the basics of how to do your square cheese. You're going to do it, like I said, on a regular sheet of paper. Typically, I put my vanishing points up high, kind of exaggerate the features on this. But then, let's say you like this, and in Photoshop, you want to flip it upside down so you're looking at it from below. You could do that, okay? So those are your options. That's basically how to do your square cheese drawing.